biology. Basically, anything you want to chit chat about before we begin? Yes, no, no. Everyone see the screen that I'm sharing?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So no doubts. Okay, so if you have no doubts, let's start with today's class. And before I start today's class, I think I already did tell you that I will be asking questions in every class about the last class. Did I tell you this? Yes or no? No. Yes. People, come on. You have to speak in my class. It's mandatory to speak.
Sir, I didn't know you will ask questions.
You didn't know? Okay, so you know now. Fine, Shane. Okay, we'll just discuss, okay, what we, as a brief recap, so that recaps are very important. And like some of your favorite OTT platforms, you don't have the skip option here. So we will go through what we have done before to connect a link of what we are going to do in today's class. And basically to keep checking the broader picture, the broader learning of biology, okay, in every class. So the last two classes were the first introductory classes where we started with basically understanding reproduction from the context of a life process, what it is. And I also told you about the importance of making a terminology section, correct? I hope every one of you has now separate copy and the terminology section defined in it. Everyone has it? Just confirm, yes?
Yes, sir.
Yes, perfect. Then we went on to discuss reproduction from the context of development, which is direct and indirect. Both these terms are clear. What is direct and indirect development?
Yes, sir.
Yes?
Yes, sir.
So Alia said yes. So Alia, would you like to tell me about what is direct and indirect development?
Well, indirect development is like, for example, humans. When they reproduce, the babies of the humans just look like them. Whereas in indirect, for example, in frogs, the tadpole is formed, then they developed and they became a frog.
Yes. So what is different between a tadpole and a human baby, Alia?
In tadpole, it's not identical to its adult form. Like, it's not identical to the parent form. Whereas in humans, they look like a human baby. They don't look like another organism or something.
Right. So when you are writing this or when you're saying this, you should use words like a tadpole is morphologically and anatomically different from its parent. You know, that will help you fetch more marks with just lesser words used. What you are saying, I know that you have understood it completely and you are completely right about it. Okay. Next, we discuss metamorphosis. Arpit, would you like to tell what was metamorphosis or molting? It was associated with indirect development, but how? Arpit, you're there? Yes, you're there. What is metamorphosis or molting?
I don't remember exactly.
You don't remember?
Yes.
Okay, so who will help Arpit?
Then it is having a large change in the appearance.
Yes, a large transformation, appearance-wise transforming from something very different to something very different, right? And how is it? How would you link it with Alia's answer about indirect development?
Sir, I just joined.
Oh, welcome. You just joined. Yeah. So okay. So let me ask Alia then. Alia.
Sir, the metamorphosis is largely appearances, matlab, like it means transformed into something else. So the indirect is changing into, like, it's a small steps, like changing into a tadpole to a proper frog. And yeah, I just can't explain it. Okay, I get it.
No, you're going good. So the point is these technical terms. So at times you must be feeling that how I am able to articulate it better as a teacher, because of course the experience matters, but over time when you will be learning and discussing these things with me, right terms just come as a habit after some time. Okay, but the more important thing is that you understand, and you do understand. So is it clear, Arpit, what everyone is trying to tell you? Metamorphosis is basically changes in the morphological appearance. In indirect development, as Alia told, organisms go through various different stages, like a egg, larva, caterpillar, pupa, and then coming to becoming an insect. And all these stages look very, very different from each other, both morphologically and anatomically. Is it clear, Arpit?
Yes, sir.
For everyone, is it clear? Okay. Then we discussed DNA, gene, and chromosome, right? And I told you something about DNA, so we'll be talking about DNA. Please, what do you understand by DNA? Anyone would like to volunteer for
Sir,
it? Yes. Good.
sir, DNA is deoxyribonucleic acid. As sir, there is deoxy present, so that just means that there is absence of oxygen in it, sir. And sir, DNA contains the genetic information as well.
Contains the
Sir, genetic information.
genetic what? See, when it always
Sir,
happens when we are not sure about some words, we often speak it slow, or less louder. But that will still make it that word, right? You have to just speak it. If it is wrong, we'll correct you. We all will correct each other collectively, right? And we learn. So DNA is the genetic material, right? It itself is a molecule which is called a genetic material, and it is a very long molecule. It's like a long thread. Remember? And,
yes, sir.
and what is gene? Alvia. Alvia, are you there? Can you speak? Because you yes.
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Yes. So would you like to tell about gene? What is gene and where is it present? What did we discuss? Remember we discussing gene? Were you there in the last class? So you were right.
So I wasn't there in the last class. I'm sorry.
There. Okay. Let me go to Shin then. Oh, Shin is just entering. Shini. Maharaj. What did we understand about gene?
Gene is a part of DNA, which in turn, sir, comprises of the chromosomes. And sir, in the chromosomes, sir, we have 46 in number and 23 pairs in humans.
Yeah.
And
So before going,
they
Maharaj, before going to chromosome, just complete things about gene. So remember I told you about the gene has an open reading frame, start codon, stop
yes,
codon.
sir. Yes, yes. So start could answer UA, when UG, UAA, UAG, and UGA.
Maharaj, that is
And this is stop codon, sir. And the start codon is, sir, it is AGU.
AU.
It is AGU.
AGU will become something different. AGU is not same as AUG. Remember I told you, did I
Yes,
tell you
sir, yes, sir.
how I remember AUG as the start codon?
Yes, sir.
Yes, it's short form for August. And I remember it that India got independence in August. So India started with
Yes,
August,
sir. Yes, sir.
starts with August, okay? You can just associate August with something. If anyone's birthday is in August, anyone whose birthday falls in August, one's birthday is in August. What probability? How many people are we? We are 8 people. No one's birthday is in August out of
My
8.
brother's birthday is in August, so I remember it like that.
Brother Fatima. Okay, perfect. So Fatima's brother's birthday is in August, so it's easier for you to remember. Okay, all of you can associate August with something, and then can remember that gene starts. So Fatima's brother started his lifespan from 1 August in one particular year. Right, Fatima? Good for you.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. Okay.
Sir,
Now,
also the gene is only less than 1% of the DNA.
yes, gene is only less perfect. So functional genes. So when we say gene, we often normally in biology means that gene codes for a protein. Every gene has to code for a protein if it is functional, if it is going to play a role in biology. Because proteins, remember we used to study proteins are the fundamental units, building blocks, amino acids are building blocks of life or of a cell. So everything is made up of protein structures, and function also happens through proteins. Okay, then we went on to chromosome, and we discussed that chromosome is just compact form of DNA, correct? Fatima, would you like to take over to chromosome? So we have 2 Fatimas, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Fatima Munir has written her complete name. Okay, so Fatima, if I'll say just Fatima, it's Fatima. And if I'll say Fatima Munir, it's Fatima Munir. Okay, clear. Okay, Fatima.
Sir, chromosome is, we have 46 chromosomes and 23 pairs of chromosomes in our body, in our DNA. And
One cell, in a cell.
okay, in one cell.
The thread.
And the chromosomes contain the genes.
Yes. So DNA is the thread, and on that thread, any region you mark that starts with a start codon and ends with the end codon, that part of DNA will become a gene. Clear? And if
Yes.
you take that long DNA and start making it condense, like start rolling it or squishing it together, then it will become one chromosome. Correct?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. We then went on to discuss meiosis, mitosis to understand and also understand ploidy. Who will talk about this? Fatima Munir. Yes, your chance. Tell us about meiosis and mitosis. What did we discuss?
Meiosis is reduction division, and mitosis is equational division. And
Why are they called so?
meiosis helps in sexual reproduction, and mitosis helps with growth and replacement and repair.
Yes. Why do we call them equational and reductional division?
Because mitosis is called equational division because it divides equally.
What it divides equally?
Like the cell divides into equal daughter cells, like four cells divide into
Anyone would
two
like
cells divided into 4.
anyone would like to add something to Fatima's statement? So is the division that we are talking about here, is it of the cell or of something else?
It's of the chromosome.
It's of the chromosome, which you mean the total genetic material, correct?
Yes, sir.
Right. So the genome is divided equally or it is reduced. You understood, Fatima? Munir?
Yes, sir.
Yes. What was ploidy? Remember talking about ploidy? Calling cells as diploid and haploid. So we are going to name cells like haploid, diploid in sexual reproduction. So ploidy means the copy number of genome, correct? And this is what is divided through mitosis and meiosis, along with every other thing in the cell as well, correct? And how many cycles of division are there in meiosis and mitosis?
There are 2 in meiosis.
How many?
2.
2 in meiosis. So there are 2 cycles of divisions in meiosis. In one meiotic cycle, there are 2 cycles actually, 2 division cycles. And in mitosis, there is only 1. Correct. Then we started with reproduction. After understanding these concepts, we started with understanding sexual and asexual reproduction. Now someone, okay, I did give you the definition for asexual, right? And asked you to write for sexual. Am I correct? Both these definitions are done, but is it done or not?
It is done.
It is done, correct. Okay, then we discussed about binary fission as a mode of asexual reproduction. We also discussed briefly about certain structures, but today we have to go into detail, correct? This is where we stand. Everyone, just confirm this is where we are.
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. So let's start with asexual reproduction first in detail. We'll finish this. It is smaller a section as compared to sexual. So we'll first finish this. So asexual mode
Sir,
of,
you asked us to find out why the dolly sheep was, how the dolly sheep was cloned,
yes,
and also why the hyacinth, water hyacinth is,
known as Bengal terror.
yeah.
Okay, perfect. So these were some things we discussed. Okay, so keep reminding me of these things because see, my vulnerability is and my limitation is because I am discussing quite a lot of things with other batches as well. So if I derail from some discussion that I asked you to do, it's your responsibility to bring me on track. Okay, promise? Thank you so much. Okay, so before we begin, so Dolly was a clone, right? And we'll discuss about Dolly in asexual mode only and also about water hyacinth. Let's just first begin with this mode. Okay, so as we all know that asexual mode of reproduction means that there is no fusion of gametes, correct? And there is only one sex involved, correct?
Yes, sir.
So if the mode is asexual, there can also be no variation, right, among the offspring. So it is the offsprings are exactly like photocopies of their parents. Now, when I'm saying that they are exact photocopies genetically, till now, you have to know that there is one, biology has exceptions, right? Remember I told you in the beginning that biology is the study of life, and life always does not go by the rule because sometimes there are environmental factors, there are physical challenges, or there are chemical challenges around which asks life forms, any life form, to adapt, make changes in itself and to grow, correct? For example, remember we discussed about heat tolerance in a European versus a African. Did we do that?
No, sir.
Oh,
No,
okay.
sir.
Okay, so let's talk about, let me just briefly go there. So you know that Africans are very dark skinned because they have a compound in their skin, beneath their skin, which is called melanin.
Yes, sir.
That makes their skin very dark.
Yes, sir. There's some melanin protects us from sunlight, so intensities of sunlight. That's why, so in places where there is like London and where there's less sun exposures, they have whiter skin, and tropical regions like India and Africa, they have darker skin people.
Exactly. So those who study biology also understands that fair skin has no advantage or is not a more beautiful feature over dark skin, right?
Yes, sir.
These are two biologically different components which evolved because of the place you are living in. If Africans were fair skinned, they would all probably have more chances of getting skin cancers and skin burns and dying because of it. So just to survive there, biology had to adapt, and that change, that adaptation of any kind, whether it is biological, cell physiological, or behavioral, that is called a part of evolution. So Africans have melanin, lots and lots of melanin is formed beneath in their skin cells that protect their DNA in every skin cell from the UV radiation of the sun. Now, you know that UV radiation is a fraction of the component of the sunlight, and UV radiation is very energetic. It can penetrate inside the cell and also can damage the DNA inside the cell in the nucleus. That's why we use UV sanitization to kill germs. Have you seen this? You know this, right? If you put something in UV, the bacteria around or present, any bacteria present there will die. So everything, if you have to sanitize them, if you do not have alcohol, like 90% alcohol or any hand sanitizer that contains alcohol, then you can use UV irradiation. But if you expose your body to UV radiation, it will also cause damage to your living cells. So basically it causes damage to the DNA. Is it clear, all of you?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So Africans have evolved to live under extreme heat and sunlight. That's why they have developed this melanization inside their skin. Also, you will see that there are differences in people's appearance and their behavior and how they manage their resources depending on where are they living, right? But we all belong to the same species, correct? Correct or not?
Yes.
But still we are all different. Now, in asexual mode, that variation, that difference is very difficult to come in. Now, I'm not saying impossible, because remember, biology is an field of exceptions, and there is something called mutation that we are not studying in this chapter, because mutation is an exception of cloning that happens in asexual mode. Anyone knows about mutations, mutants? Anyone has seen X-Men? Not that.
Sir, X-Men is a fictional idea, but sir, actual mutations contains sir like a fixed finger, or sir eye colors, sir, different eye colors. Sir, one eye color you have black, and another eye color you have blue or something like that.
Yes. So mutation is simply change in any gene that has not happened because of sexual reproduction or because of parents' genes merging together and making another type of a combination. No, mutation is something that randomly can happen. You know, mutations can also happen with exposure to UV. Mutations can also happen with exposure to mutagens. There are many chemicals in nature which if go inside our body, can cause mutations in one or the other gene. Mutations can also happen randomly during development or during DNA copying. So when DNA is replicating itself, remember meiosis and mitosis? Before cell division, DNA replicates itself. Clear? Say yes or no. So this is something that I'm just making your foundation before I go into the sexual mode. You know, DNA replicates itself, makes its copy before dividing, so that it can send one copy to one cell, one copy to other cell. Correct?
Yes, sir.
So while copying it, because it's a biological process, there are chances of error, right? Error can happen everywhere. So when you are copying the DNA, there are chances that one base, suppose at one place in a DNA, let's say this is the strand which is getting copied, and there is A, T, C, A, T. This is the sequence that is getting copied to make another strand of DNA. But when it got copied as A, T, G, A, T. So instead of this C, there is a G here. Let's see if this happened. So this is called a mutation, which can just happen, a change, a single point mutation that happened as an error during the copying. And this is actually very, very normal to happen. But if this is very normal, then by now we all life should have just become unstable and perish, right? So for that to not happen, our cell, so if you are afraid that while copying something wrong might get copied, what will you do?
We will not copy.
You will not copy. But copying is important. No? If you will not copy, you will not be able to divide cell. If you will not be able to divide cell, you will not be able to repair your wound. So instead of becoming completely like negative about the copying process, is there anything else we can do to make sure that there is no mistake?
Put a supervisor.
Exactly, perfect. And what will the supervisor do?
Supervise and not allow the copying to happen.
Not allow the mistake to happen. So you mean to say, make sure that someone proofreads, right? Whenever there is a book published or a book, you send it for proofreading, right? Even a thesis, when you publish, you send that for proofreading, or you do a proofreading yourself to find out any mistakes and correct it. Similarly, in our cell, there are proofreader molecules. So biology is it's as simple as your thought process is. So if you know that if someone is copying something and he or she is prone to make mistakes, let me supervise and proofread. Similarly, cell has also evolved molecules that can just proofread this whole process. And whenever there is a mismatch, it removes that mismatch and put the right base in. That's called DNA proofreading or DNA during DNA replication. Okay. Now coming back to asexual mode. So we are not discussing mutations here. Mutations are one way by which even asexual organisms can have variations in their genome, but that is not very easy or straightforward and does not happen all the time in all the genes. So that's not a process that we will discuss here. We will discuss it later. But remember, for discussion for today, for now, asexual mode makes copies known as clones. So as you all have definitions, right? You already have the definition for asexual mode.
Yes, sir.
So now let's go to the modes directly. So in asexual mode, basically we'll be discussing about two things: asexual mode for unicellular organisms and asexual mode for multicellular organisms. Like in unicellular organisms, can there be a sexual mode of reproduction? Think and tell me. Is there a possibility of sexual reproduction in unicellular organism? Yes, Arpit. I'll just repeat. You did not miss anything. I'm just starting with asexual mode of reproduction. And before that, I just told that mutation is one thing that still can create variation in genes, even in asexually reproducing organisms, but that is not what we will discuss today. Okay, and it's not.
I don't think it's possible because it is a unicellular organism, and so for
You believe that sexual
sexual,
reproduction is possible?
no, it's not possible
It's not possible, you mean? Okay, perfect. And can you give me reasons why do you think it's not possible?
because it is unicellular, and for sexual reproduction you need another cell to like fuse.
Yes, you need to make gametes, right?
Yes.
And gametes themselves are unicellular. So for a unicellular organism to make another unicellular gamete, there is only one way to do that, to divide, right?
Yes, sir.
And when it is dividing, then anyways it is reproducing, right? If one bacteria divides and become two bacteria, that itself is a mode of reproduction. So one became two, right? No need to worry about making gametes, fusing it, and doing all these complex things, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So there is no concept of sexual reproduction in unicellular organisms. Is it clear to all of you?
Yes, sir.
There are processes which are equivalent to sexual reproduction processes at the level of genome, at the genetic level, but there is no process like sexual reproduction. So write down this important point. It is very important for your entrances. They ask questions. In unicellular organisms, there is no process like sexual reproduction. There is no process like sexual reproduction, gametogenesis, or fusion of gamete. Okay. Write down. Unicellular organisms naturally reproduce. Unicellular organisms, for example, bacteria, naturally reproduce through asexual modes. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Sir, so are all unicellular organisms reproduce in asexual mode?
Yes, all unicellular organisms reproduce through asexual modes. As I told you, there are some processes that mimics or that are equivalent of a sexual reproducing organism, but at the chromosome level, not as a process. So they do not undergo mate selection, they do not undergo transfer of gametes, they do not undergo gametogenesis and the variation. But as I told you, there are certain processes by which variations can still come in. Okay, and organisms can have different genome setup. One big example, okay, let me give you this as an assignment for today for you. We will discuss it tomorrow, okay, in detail. It's very interesting, and Fatima's question is very much appreciated and welcome. So Fatima, you know that bacteria is a unicellular organism?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and you know that how do we treat bacterial infections?
By taking
Antibiotics.
antibiotics, yes.
Antibiotics are chemicals that go and kill bacteria, right? So antibiotics are of different kind, but the most common one is that go and attacks on the cell wall of the bacteria and disrupt or damage the destroy the cell wall. So if there is no cell wall, the bacterial cell cannot survive, right? Correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, have you also heard that these days these antibiotics are not working because many bacteria which causes disease are creating resistance against these antibiotics?
So can you say that
Yes.
once again?
Yes. So are you aware that many of the antibiotics are not that effective on the bacterial infections that they used to be 20 years ago? So have you heard or do you know about this
Can
thing?
you repeat, sir?
Yes, am I lagging? Is my voice lagging or something?
Sir, it is little muffled, sir. So can you speak?
Okay, 1 second. Is it fine now?
Yes, sir, not so.
Yes. So I was saying that do you know that many antibiotics are not very much effective now, and bacteria are developing resistance against antibiotics? Have you read or heard this sentence ever in your life? Doctors are
Yes,
very
sir.
much worried these days. And if any one of you wants to become a doctor or go to a medical field to serve people, it is going to be a problem. We will be out of effective antibiotic therapies in coming 40-50 years. So you know that bacteria are getting resistant against antibiotics.
But sir, we humans are also like we are finding so many ways to remove all these things.
Yes, I'll come to those ways, but we are just talking about one way here, which is an antibiotic killing a bacteria. Okay. So when antibiotics were discovered by Alexander Fleming, we discussed about penicillium. Remember this? Alexander Fleming found the first
Yes.
antibiotic from this fungus, which is called Penicillium notatum. And the first antibiotic found is called penicillin. We have many derivatives of penicillin. And penicillin is a chemical secreted by this fungus that goes and destroys the cell wall of bacteria. So it kills bacteria. Okay. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
But now bacteria are getting resistant against this antibiotic. They are not getting killed. The antibiotic is not able to kill them. Do you know?
So why is it like that?
Exactly. Why is the question? It should not be like that, because if an organism reproduces through asexual reproduction, all its progenies are clones, right? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So they have the same gene, they have the same mechanisms, they have everything same. So if antibiotics were able to kill bacteria 20 years ago, whatever bacteria we have now came from them only, right? Just division and new bacteria is forming, correct?
Yes, sir.
Then why are we not able to kill them now? What has changed? This is a new ability that bacteria has got, which means that even in asexual reproduction, if through
Evolution happens.
sorry, what, Fatima?
Even in asexual reproduction, evolution happens.
Yes, evolution is happening all the time, but even organisms that reproduce through asexual reproductions, when they cannot find ways of changes, of variations through the reproductive process, they find other mechanisms. Okay, so there are other ways by which you can create variations in a genome, which is not possible in asexual mode. Is it clear, Fatima?
Yes, sir.
And that variation can come from mutation. That variation can come from, there is something called horizontal gene transfer, HGT, horizontal gene transfer. Write this one thing down. It is important for if anyone wants to go into doing BSc in biology, or anyone wants to is aiming for medical entrances, start looking at these things from today onwards. See, if you will take any subject as a subject, okay, let's see, this is a subject I have to study and then score marks. It will just be a subject, and for you to do good in it, your capability will be limited. But if you start treating subjects as areas you are interested in learning, so if you are interested in knowing things about biology, I will be telling you very, very interesting things about biology, which applies on your body also, your physiology, your biology also. Now there is something called horizontal gene transfer. Reproduction is a vertical gene transfer. Through reproduction, what we do, so let's say there is a parent. So this is a parent, or let's say there are two parents. So this is generation 1, correct? And these two parents got together and fertilization happened. Suppose these two parents produce two offsprings. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
So through reproduction, we went now to generation 2. And these two offsprings also got partners, and same sexual reproduction happened, and they produced two offsprings each. You understand? And this is the third generation. So gene from this, yes,
This
Fatima,
is for sexual reproduction.
for any reproduction, just reproduction. I am taking an example of sexual reproduction, okay? Because in sexual reproduction, we are transferring genes from both the parents. So just you can, even if you take asexual reproduction, the pie chart will be like this. So from one parent, asexually you produce two parents, right? And from each parent, asexually you produced another two parents. So there will be no partners involved, but the chart will look something like this only, correct?
Yes, sir.
Here there are two partners at every node. Two partners means two sexes. So is it clear, Fatima?
Yes, sir.
But generation 1, 2, 3, 4, let's say. So from generation 1 to generation 2, when we are transferring the genes, we are doing it down the line, right?
Yeah.
Down. Like the chart we are making is going down the line, correct? That's called vertical gene transfer. By vertical means from one generation to another in timeline. Is it clear, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Through reproduction, we do vertical gene transfer. There is something called horizontal gene transfer. Now, in horizontal gene transfer, there is no need to reproduce and go to the next generation. You can transfer genes within the same generation. Now, there are limitations to this, and only certain organisms can do that. And can anyone guess which organisms can do that easily? Lower organisms or higher organisms? Lower organisms, because most of the lower organisms reproduce asexually. So they do not have the chance to make changes or variations in their genome only by reproduction. So they have found other ways, like bacteria has also found other ways to create changes. And one of that way is horizontal gene transfer. Okay. So will you go and read about it a little bit today so that we can tomorrow discuss it?
Yes, sir.
Everyone?
Yes,
This is,
sir.
this is asked in entrances, horizontal gene transfer. But let's focus on asexual mode. And first, write down. I've also told you about the characteristics of asexual mode. Single parent involved, no fertilization. It is rapid, less complex. Have I told you all this?
No, sir.
No. Okay. So write down first. Characteristics of asexual reproduction. Characteristics. Characteristics of asexual reproduction. First thing is single sex involved. In bracket, you can write parent. But we have discussed why using the word parent is not the most perfect way, right? There are hermaphrodites as well. Have we discussed hermaphrodites? No. We have not discussed hermaphrodites till now, right? Say yes or no. People, have
No,
we
sir.
discussed? No. Okay. So write down single sex or parent involved. Second thing, it is a fast process, requires very short time. Requires short time. Makes sense, right? In sexual reproduction, you first have to find a mate, then you have to transfer the gametes, that those gametes have to fertilize, fuse, then make a zygote. That zygote have to develop as an embryo. Embryo has to develop as a baby, and then baby has to come out either as live birth or as an egg, right? So it's more time taking. Asexual reproduction requires short time. Third point, organisms multiply and grow rapidly. Even the development is shorter, right? Organisms multiply and divide rapidly. The process is short, the development is short. And fourth things, it is simple. It is simple, less less complex in terms of structures, also less complex and less energy consuming. Okay. Now you can again make more sense that why all unicellular organisms undergo sexual reproduction, because unicellular organisms are simple organisms. They have just one cell. Also, many lower organisms, even if they are multicellular, they also undergo asexual reproduction because it's less complex. It is very simple to happen and it requires less energy. And small organisms have less energies in their body, correct? Because they have less number of cells. Is it clear or not? You all have studied glycolysis in class 11th, how we produce energy in our cell, correct? And you know that lower organisms have lesser energy production in their cells. Say yes or no. Know this? Someone has to say yes or no. Is it making sense? Can you relate? Lower organisms undergo less energy production, hence they would not like to spend a lot of energy in reproduction. Am I clear? Am I audible to all of you? I think. Okay, am I audible now? Yes, Alia. I'm audible, right? Okay, thank you. So what the processes that we are going to study in asexual mode will be, first is binary fission in detail, and along with binary fission we'll also be doing multiple fission. Second will be budding. Other modes, if you know, please tell me. Budding. What else? What else are the asexual mode of reproduction? Budding, binary fission, fragmentation,
Vegetative propagation.
yes. And there is one more thing called regeneration. I will take fragmentation and regeneration together. Yes, and vegetative propagation. So let's start with binary fission first. What do we mean by the term binary? Tell me.
Division.
No, binary. Binary means two, and fission means division. So binary fission is simply where one cell, let's take an example of a bacterial cell. So if this is a bacterial cell, this one cell simply divides from the center and become two daughter cells, both of which will develop into a bacteria. Okay, this is simple binary fission, one cell dividing into two. Is it clear? Now everyone is here with me. I'm going to ask a very important question to all of you. Am I audible to all of you?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So this is generation 1, correct?
Yes, sir.
And this is generation 2, correct?
Yes.
But can you see that the generation 2 is actually generation 1 dividing and becoming two daughter cells? So this mother cell, the mother bacterial cell, became the daughter cell itself, right?
Yeah.
So where did the mother cell go? When the
It's
second
gone.
when the second generation came, was the first generation there?
No.
No.
So you understand that actually the first generation itself divides and become members of the second generation. So there is no first generation now. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
So if I ask you, do a bacteria ever die? If naturally, if we are not killing it by antibiotics, will it ever die?
Yes, by reproduction.
So is it dying when a mother cell is becoming daughter cells? Is there any death?
No, sir. They will just further reproduce.
Yes. So it's just like if I try to put an analogy, it's like a fully grown human divides into two and both become babies. So there is a 6 foot tall human who just divides from the half, like any section, and then both the halves become two babies. Again, they will grow and divide. So did any member ever naturally died? Is there a concept of natural death for unicellular organisms?
No, sir.
No. Can you appreciate why? All of you? There is no concept of a natural death for a bacteria. That's why you will never ever in any book find the lifespan of a bacteria. There is no lifespan of a bacteria. There is only a life cycle of a bacteria. We discussed did we discuss lifespan and life cycle? No, we'll do that now after this. But can you appreciate that there is no natural death for unicellular organisms? So they are biologically immortal, correct? So write down in binary fission. First, let's define binary fission. Write down. In binary fission, the parent cell, in binary fission, the parent cell divides into two daughter cells.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, please.
Sir, but usually, sir, the lifespan of a bacteria is मतलब लिखा होता है sir पूरा book में. तो वो क्या है sir?
If there is a lifespan written for any bacteria anywhere, that's a correction, that's a mistake. Because what is the lifespan? Okay, let's come to this point before. So can I first dictate it, then I'll come to this point?
Yes, sir, sure. Sir.
We'll discuss it. Okay, so
Sir,
let's.
sorry for interrupting.
No, it's fine. You have to interrupt me, everyone. You have to. It's your right. Okay. It's not a class where there is a hierarchy that I am a teacher. When I will speak, you all will be disciplined with finger on your mouth. No. So let's first complete it. The parent cell divides into two daughter cells. It is one of the simplest and uncomplicated. It is one of the simplest and uncomplicated methods of asexual reproduction. Next point, each daughter cell carrying the genetic material of its own. Each daughter cell carrying the genetic material of its own grows and develop to repeat this process again. Grows and develop to repeat this process again. Okay, everyone has written. Anyone lagging behind or needs a repetition? Say yes or no.
No need, sir.
Okay, let's move to the discussion now. So yes, please again put the question. What was the question? That there is lifespan mentioned for even for bacteria. Am I correct? Was that the question? Who brought in the question actually? Arpit, was it you?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So the question was that you have read or there are books in which the lifespan of a bacteria is written, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes. So if anywhere the lifespan of a bacteria is written, that's a mistake. Probably they didn't think about using the term lifespan and life cycle correctly, because there is no lifespan for a bacteria. A bacteria have days to die. So suppose you will hear in as a doctors, what is possible is that there is an infection and the spread of infection is 10%, 20%, 30%, and you start the medication of antibiotics, and then you say that within 10 days all the bacteria will die, right? But that is not natural death. That is we killing the bacteria to contain the infection. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Biologically, a bacteria never dies, because when a bacteria grow and become mature, like a big fully grown bacteria, it simply divides into two and become two daughter cells of equal sizes, which again grow back to the size of the mother and then again do the same process. So do you see anywhere any member dying?
No, sir.
No. So biologically, they will not age and they will not die. They will only die if they do not get food, if there is a chemical in the surrounding which can kill it, if there are other bacteria that can eat it and kill it, or if there is any unfavorable condition arising which can again kill it. So in every condition, they are dying because they are getting killed because of starvation or any other thing. Make sense to all of you?
Yes, sir.
Now let's try to see the difference. For example, a human. If I keep a human always well fed, food, shelter, nutrition, medication, everything is provided to human. and the human, ideally let's assume that the human has no disease, but will the human live forever? If a human provided with everything it requires to live, will it live forever?
No,
Yes, sir,
sir.
it can.
No, it will never.
It cannot.
It cannot. Why do you think it can? Yes, Arpit, it's a very interesting thing, because immortality is something, it's a very interesting thing, and humanity always gets fascinated. Yes, why do you think we can live forever, Arpit?
Sir, I thought because sir, the usual reason of a death is that someone is suffering some of the disease. Sir, अगर disease ही नहीं होगा तो I think there's a probability that the person can survive. Sir, आप देखो ना sir, usually sir ये जापान और बाकी countries में sir इनका lifespan कितना ज़्यादा होता है.
Yeah, usually किनका lifespan लंबा है?
Sir, जो लोग जापान वगैरह में sir,
Yes, right.
ऐसी countries.
So you mean to say that Japan, yes, Japan is the home for the most number of centenarians, like people who are above 100 years of age, but they also die, correct?
Yes, sir.
What happens is, let me tell you, biologically, humans always age, and to make them immortal, only getting them rid of diseases. If you take disease out of the context, there is no disease in any organ of our body. Still, our organs are functioning and they are irreplaceable. Correct? So our eyes, without any disease, still will keep on getting weaker and weaker with time. The more they will function, the less efficient they will get. Our heart continuously beating right before our birth. Heart is the first organ that is formed,
Yes, sir.
and by the time
Yes, sir.
first month of pregnancy comes, inside a mother there are two hearts beating, one of her own and one of her baby, and that heart is a very small rice, like the size of a rice grain, very small heart, but it actually is beating very feebly, very very feebly. You will not be able to hear it, but it is there working. So heart is working right from that. Yes,
Can you hear it with a stethoscope?
you can hear it after the first trimester with a stethoscope.
After the first trimester.
Like first 3 months are gone. Sometimes you can hear it from the second month also. Like you have to very carefully put that stethoscope at the right position. So you will not be able to hear your own heartbeat if you put your stethoscope, let's say, on your here or anywhere. So you have to keep it at the right position, right, to hear it
Yeah.
properly. So it also depends how the baby is aligned inside the womb. So all the babies are not in exactly same position, so you know that where to put so that you can hear the heartbeat. But yes, you can see it beating with the ultrasound all the time.
Okay.
Okay, because ultrasound goes, when a baby is very very small, you can see that the chest is being up and down, and you can also hear it clearly after the first trimester. After 3 months, it's very clear. You can keep your hand on a pregnant woman's womb, the belly region, and you will see that apart from the kicks and the movements of the hands, you will also feel a heartbeat, feeble heartbeat. But my point to coming to Arpit's discussion was that, Arpit, do you agree that over time all our organs continuously working will get tired? Because our body is nothing but a very fascinating machine, a biological machine, and all parts need replacement after some time or the other. So we say that for every organ there is a natural death limit, a natural lifespan.
Sir,
Yes, let me just, yes, please complete.
sir, if we transplant the organs.
I was coming to that only. So the next obvious question is, then if our organs have a lifespan, how can we give it or donate it to other person, right, when we die?
Yes.
And why our organs don't die when we die? Because all the humans, taking into consideration the disease factor, the environmental factor, the pollution factor, the misusing of substances, alcohol, smoking, oily food, cholesterol, everything that happens in our body, we always die very early than our natural life of all our organs. A heart, a fully functional, healthy heart can be, so if a person dies at the age of 60, let's say, of some disease that did not touch the heart. Okay, Arpit, are you understanding?
Yes, sir. Yes.
But the heart is healthy, but the person has disease in liver, let's say liver failure, he died. Now you took out the heart, transplanted it in other person who was just in his 20s, let's say, and that person also lives for like, let's say 70 years. So 50 years that heart worked in patient A, 50 years the same heart worked in patient B. Now that patient can also, if it's all hypothetical, like it very unlikely it happens, but if that person also dies because of anything that is not related to heart, that heart can again be taken out and given to the third person. So clearly the lifespan of a heart as an organ, if no illness or no disease touches it, it's way more than the lifespan of a human. Now do you understand, Arpit? That's why we feel that if we will no disease, we will live forever. No, we might live for 300 years, let's give or take 50 years more or less, but still we will die, because the system as a whole will stop working. So the next step to achieve immortality is that you have to figure out which organ is going to give up first and constantly keep replacing it. Just like in a car, you have 10 parts. Part 1 started malfunctioning, you took another part 1 and added it. It's a new part 1 then. So that way you can keep the car running forever. Is it making sense, Arpit?
Yes.
But talking about one body, one physiology, immortality is not going to be achieved by humanity unless and until we become so much fluent with medicinal technology that we can at our will replace whatever we want. And one step towards that is harvesting organs in animals. How many of you follow science news? If anyone does that, please go back. It is last month's news, I think in February or March. If not March, it's February. But this year only, in February or March, a news came that United scientists and doctors, a team of them in United States, have very successfully transplanted a heart developed inside, grown and harvested inside a pig into a human body. But that was genetically a human heart. They were just harvesting a human heart inside an animal, because when that heart became infunctional, they took out that heart, which is genetically modified. So it's a hybrid heart. It's not a totally pig heart. It's not a completely human heart. But that heart was transplanted successfully and the patient is alive. So that is possible. Yes,
The
Fatima.
news came that the patient actually died.
You just followed this news. The patient died.
Yeah.
So
I
this-
saw it. I saw it last month only, I think. It
when
came
I-
that
So when I read the news, it was the patient was alive from last 2 weeks of after 2 weeks the transplantation. I'm not sure if you're talking about the same patient or not. But this
Sir,
is
how is it possible that when the heart is transplanted and then the patient is still alive?
see, because you are taking another heart and putting it in the patient's body. What does heart do basically in our body?
Pump the blood.
Pumps the blood.
So when you take out a heart, you're just not leaving the body. You have to, so when you cut a major artery, which was taking blood out of, you have to attach those arteries to a artificial heart outside, which will keep pumping the blood with pressure. So it's just working on pressure mechanism. And by that time, you put another heart and start stitching the same. So you lose blood, but you are constantly giving blood also.
It takes
It takes
a long time to do the,
Yes, it takes a long
that-
time. It's a very complex.
and in between that much time, if the heart is not pumping the blood, then
And a machine is pumping the blood. All a human needs to be alive is the blood moving around the body, because the blood takes nutrients to each and every cell and takes away wastes from it, right?
yes, sir.
Yes. And it's also, remember I have told you that if heart stops beating for 10 minutes, it's not death. Because the moment heart stops beating, the organism does not die. Sometimes due to shock, some people's heart stop. But then have you heard of a technique called CPR?
Yes, sir.
So you give defibrillators, or you like put pressure on the heart and try to revive it again, try to make it beat again. And if you can do that, the patient is alive and well. Nothing died in its body. So death also is a not very clear term. When should we say that the person is dead? So that we say when all the organs are in disharmony and nothing can now be revived back. So that is death. But if one organ is gone, that's not death. Normally people die because of it, because there is no replacement available. But remember, do you understand what we are discussing here is biology, the ethics of biology and science? Even if we are not able to do it, this is true. So we all will go back and look for what happened to the patient. If the same patient died, if it died, but it did survive for some time after the transplant, which means this is the first step. And this is where scientists are moving forward to. A lot of people are moving forward to that. If humanity can achieve this, then everyone, or I don't know. So again, what is the morality or immorality associated with it is not the question. The question is, can science achieve it? So yes, it can. What you see in science fiction, so every science fiction is a science reality just 100 or 200 years in future. Okay. So when telephones or mobile phones were not invented, so like this one single piece of metal and glass is capable of connecting people across continents. There is no wire attached, nothing. So if someone would have said 100 years ago that there'll be a piece of a metal or a glass and we'll be able to talk with it, would you think that it is making sense?
No, sir.
No, sir.
But today it's a reality. We all have computers in our hand. We are not just calling from it, we are doing everything from it. Correct? So every science fiction is just the science in future. Okay. So one day it's possible that we are harvesting our organs because they are genetically ours, made from our genes. So when we will transplant it, it will not get rejected by our body, but we are transplanting it, or we are growing it. Sorry, we are growing it or harvesting it in some other animal's body. Then we sacrifice the animal, take those organs and put it in our body when we require it. Now there is lots of issues of morality, ethology, a lot of issues with theology, cultural beliefs, religious beliefs, but science is science.
Sir,
Yes.
sir, by the way, the guy is dead, sir, which you told that we transplant.
Okay, so that's that.
Sir, he died on 8th
Is the
March.
United what?
Sir, he died on 8th March.
He died after 2 months after the transplant.
Yes, sir.
Okay, exactly. So what? But living for 2 months with a transplanted heart from a pig. If it was a human heart, we all would have thought, okay, that's normal, right? That is just one step ahead, but we accept it. And there are many successful heart transplantations that have happened from a human to human, correct?
Yes, sir.
No problem in that. But saying that a pig's modified heart can make a person live for 2 months, that's one step ahead in science. Today it's 2 months, tomorrow it can be 2 years, the day after tomorrow it can be 20 years, and then a one life. So you understood what I was trying to discuss?
Yes, sir.
The topic
Yes.
of morality, so the topic of immortality and mortality. So we currently are not immortal, okay, Arpit? And
Yes, sir.
with today's science, we can also not be immortal in one body. And even with tomorrow's science, to be immortal, we have to constantly keep changing our parts. So we will just be like a Skoda car, changing our parts and staying good. But unicellular organisms in nature are immortal because they are very, very simple organisms. So nature has given them, universe has given them this power of immortality. So they are immortal. So write down. What did you write? The last thing you wrote? It was about
Each tortoise cells carrying the genetic material of its own grows and develops to repeat this process again.
yes. Now write down. All unicellular organisms and some multicellular organisms. All unicellular organisms and some multicellular organisms reproducing asexually are biologically immortal in nature. Are biologically immortal in nature. Okay. Now is the discussion clear? We learned a lot from this.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
It was interesting to discuss. Now, this concept of immortality also holds true for some multicellular organisms, like I said. So binary fission is clear to all of you. Now let me discuss with you budding, and we'll talk about some multicellular organisms. Now, what is budding? As the term suggests, they are forming a bud. What is a bud? Bud. Small outgrowth from which a new organism can form is a bud. In case of plants, we talk about buds from the perspective of flowers and fruits. So there's a bud that comes, and that bud becomes flower, and that flower gets fertilized and becomes fruit, correct?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Yes. But here in budding, we means budding happens. So for binary fission, write down examples: bacteria, amoeba, bacteria, amoeba, euglena. They all reproduce through fissions. Binary fission. Euglena can also undergo multiple fission, just like above. See here, can you see this? Oh, this is Chlamydomonas, but they have not shown a figure for Euglena, but Euglena has the capacity to go multiple fission as well. You can also write here with Euglena, Chlamydomonas. And in Chlamydomonas, just write down zoospores. They formed zoospores. Multiple smaller Chlamydomonas. So it's like a multiple fission happening. From one, you are making many. Here, from one, you are making two. That's called binary. Clear? Yes, Arpit. Hand raised.
Sir, I wanted to ask that how does a virus reproduce?
Yes, very interesting. Another one. So if we discuss about virus, 10 minutes will go in virus discussion. So do you want me to discuss virus or continue with budding? I can take virus and do budding in next class, or we can. Other
Sir,
people,
it's your choice.
no, it's
Virus.
virus. Okay. Everyone is cool with viruses?
Yes, sir.
Viruses are not a part of your 5 kingdom classification. That is what makes you even more interested in them, right? So viruses, again, so let me just, if not start budding then. Viruses are like particles, okay, people? They are like any particle you see of sand and soil, a small particle. They are just like innate non-living particles if they are outside the host cell. So outside, every virus, they can have different kinds of structures, but biologically, like going through biological things, they have majorly 2 things. One, a coat, a protein coat, okay? So a coat which will protect. Now this coat shape can be different, like it is a circle, it is spherical with lots of spikes coming out in case of COVID virus, coronavirus, the novel coronavirus, SARS-CoV-2, the virus which
Yes.
the world is dealing currently is called SARS-CoV-2. This is the name of the virus. It's a SARS virus. It's a new virus of a pre-existing family. About coronavirus, we know from last 60 years. Also about SARS, we know from a lot of time. So there was MERS that came in Middle East. You all must be knowing about it. If you don't know about it, please ask your parents. For your parents, this is not the first epidemic that they have seen. They also, if they are living in Gulf, they have seen MERS, Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, MERS. SARS is severe acute respiratory syndrome. And COVID-2 is another virus, a new virus of the family. Earlier it was SARS-CoV-1. Now this virus has lots of spikes on its surface. That's why it's called coronavirus. The word corona comes from the surface of sun. How do we make sun? When we used to started drawing, we used to make sun like this, right? This is how we make sun.
Yes, sir.
This is how a coronavirus also looks like. A spherical thing with spikes coming out. And for this structure of sun, the word used is coronary. or corona. So virus is named corona because of this structure. But it also has a coat. So this is a protein coat inside which there is no cytoplasm. So it's not a living cell. Inside it, there is just the genetic material. One single strand of DNA, not compiled as a chromosome, simply a thread kept together. Is it clear, everyone?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
So a protein coat with a genetic material inside. So this genetic material is the villain. This is what a virus is. Now, sometimes you will see viruses having a neck. So additional structure could be a neck and then a leg-like structure so that it can sit on any cell. You will see viruses shaped like this also. You will see viruses like this also. There'll be all different sorts of viruses. Some will be very smooth with no spikes on the surface. But mostly the point is there is a protein coat, proteinaceous coat, and a genetic material packed inside, sitting inside. Okay. And if it has additional structures like a neck and these leg-like structures and something called a head also, then for all these structures, the genes are present in this DNA. Or it could also be a RNA. Okay. It can be anything. It is just a genetic material and the gene is present in this. So what a virus does is, till it is outside the body, it does not replicate. It is just as good as a non-living sand particle. Is it clear, all of you?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All it needs is a host. So the moment it interacts with a host, now what is a host? A host is a cell or an organism which the virus can recognize. Okay. Everywhere around us, there are millions and millions and billions of viral particles floating in the air. But viruses are very, very specific. Now you don't have to get scared. Every breath you are taking in, you are taking viruses inside. If you are living around pets, if you are living with dogs, cats, even if you are living around plants, there are viruses that affect only plants. There are viruses that affects only cats, only dogs, and also a group like a mammals, etc. Like coronavirus, we thought that it is only human specific, but COVID can also happen to animals, cats, dogs, lions, tigers, etc. You know that? They can also get COVID infection. Yes or no? Say yes or no.
Yes, sir.
Yes. But
Yes, sir.
talking about HIV, HIV is a human immunodeficiency virus which causes AIDS. Now, HIV only causes AIDS in humans. It can stay in other organisms, but as a silent, as a reservoir. So those organisms can act as a reservoir or vector. When it comes from them to us, it causes disease in us. Similarly, there are many viruses in nature, but they do not affect us because they cannot recognize our cells. So this we will discuss about someday later about the recognition part. That is one whole interesting part of biology, how a virus starts recognizing. Okay, let me ask you, before 2019, do you think that the virus which is creating so much of ruckus and disease and illness in the world now, COVID, SARS-CoV-2, do you think it first was made in 2018 or 2019? No, right? This virus is on the planet from a very long time, like possibly even before humans were there. Then how all of a sudden in 2019 December, it thought that, okay, enough is enough, let me wage a war against humans. What do you
No,
think?
they are not wage a war against humans, but they have to find a host cell, right?
Yes. So
A
what
cell which is recognizing.
exactly? So all what a virus is doing is just following the rules of biology, right? Till this point, this virus did not had interacted with humans, had no human interaction. But when it got human interaction and enough of that, now that can come from two ways. Either you are interacting with organisms in which this virus is a reservoir, and like as far as we know about this virus now, either it was pangolin or a bat that was hosting this virus, and when humans started living in close vicinities of these animals, or they started killing these animals or for trade, like pangolin is that organism which becomes round like a ball a hard ball, because the covering is made up of leather. Whenever it seems danger, pangolin turns like a ball. Make sense? You understand what is a pangolin? Pangolin, people, yes or no?
Yes, sir.
So pangolin's leather is traded illegally. So you kill that, shred that leather out and just sell it. And bats are also a reservoir. So if there are, in many cultures, bats are used as food. So if you are eating bats, or if you are eating or trading pangolins, or if you are killing bats for no reason, or if a bat is eating something that you are eating again, so there are chances of that virus reaching to your system, correct?
Yes. Sir.
And the more exposure it will get, if over time it starts recognizing your cell and starts getting inside it, then all it is doing is following biology. It will get inside a cell and there it will multiply. So what happens is, most of the times, this genetic material has to go inside the cell, inside the host cell membrane, where if it is a RNA, then reverse transcription will happen and the RNA will be converted into DNA. And that DNA, we'll talk about that, forget about the term for now, but just know that somehow they make their genetic material incorporate in our genetic material. And when we are making proteins, we are also making proteins for the virus. And this is how viruses can trick our system. So they are like the guests which come in your house, use your kitchen, produce their own food, eat, and then make you deficit of your resources. Is it clear? Hijackers.
Sir.
Yes. Sir.
Viruses are called hijackers for this reason, because they hijack our own machinery, because they have no machinery of their own. They cannot do anything if they are outside the body. So this is how they replicate. They send their genetic material, incorporate that as our genetic material, and then when we are using our machinery, we are also making copies for them without knowing. So when we can know, if we know it, then we have to know it before it enters our cell. So our immune system, if they can figure these viruses out in our blood before they reach anywhere, then they will kill them.
How is that possible?
Yeah, that is possible by vaccines. So for COVID, we have vaccinations. And those who study biology and science also understand that virus is nothing that can be, you cannot get rid of a virus by your thoughts or by your rituals or by just being very, very religious, because lots of people make this mistake. See, I am a devotee, so virus is not going to affect me. No, if you are a devotee, if you believe in a creator, the virus is also created to fulfill its biological agendas. It will do what it will do. If it will go inside your nose, nothing can stop it from going inside your cells of your respiratory system. Yes, Arpit.
Sir, some people already had took that vaccine shot, but sir, they also got infected from COVID, sir.
Yes, because vaccines are not medicines. Vaccines are not antibiotics. Vaccines cannot prevent you from getting infected, but they, most of the times, so in a population, they prevent infections in most of the people, but they cannot prevent 100% infection. But what they can do is they can always bring down the severity of the infection. So if you are immunized, if you have immunity against COVID, even if you get positive, you will not die. The chances of you dying of COVID will be less. Okay. Okay. So understood, this is how viruses replicate. It's an interesting topic. We'll take it further in the next class. Let's stop here only. Today we discussed quite a few things which were not in the syllabus, but of course important for entrance in biology. So please come prepared a little bit for the next class about these topics: fragmentation, regeneration, and budding. Will you do this tomorrow?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Sir.
So let's end. Let's take an end asexual reproduction in tomorrow's class, people. And I hope you all are noting down everything that we are discussing. That's very important. And see you in tomorrow's class. Bye, everyone.